Welcome back to the third session of Beyond Burnout. The title of the program is Response Able. How are you today? 1 out of 10. 1 being I'm really not great, and 10 being I'm flying, I'm doing really well. What number would you give yourself? And if you are feeling a little bit low number, then maybe today you might be a little bit more reactive, a bit more knee-jerky, maybe a bit more snappy. I'm on a retreat. I'm sitting in a beautiful library. It's so quiet here. But at home, I've got leaf blowers. There's a guy next door with a car that's so loud. And during lockdown, these sounds became so amplified. And my mind was really agitated, with the threat of catching the disease or my family getting sick. And the stress that I was experiencing, which was really a lot of burnout at that time, working so hard. Our work became extremely popular during the pandemic. And I found that when my mind is stressed and agitated, I was way more reactive. I was in that fight, flight, or freeze. That nervous system was in the sympathetic mode, and that really directs the body's involuntary response to dangerous or stressful situations. I was always in that sympathetic mode. And a flash of hormones alerts the body to a stressful event, increasing our heart rate, sending extra blood to our muscles. And it's really a survival technique that's kept the human race alive for all this time. That fight, flight, or freeze, which is a good thing, but chronic stress over a long period of time. If you've ever been in a car accident, you will know when we get into that stressful situation, you might not feel any pain. And as soon as you calm down, then you start to feel that pain. It's because of all those stress chemicals that get pumped into your body that deadens that pain, so you can run, fight, and so on. But then there are times when the stress is just not as vital or as threat, and we get triggered anyway. It might be that leaf blower or that loud car, but our body goes into that same response. So you can imagine four levels of reactivity. Number 1, emotionally reactive. It's where I'm like reading a book and a fly starts to circle around my head and it really disturbs me, and I try and swat at the fly many times and it disturbs my peace and it makes me angry. And I just put the book down and I walk out of the library because I just can't stand it anymore. This is an example of an emotionally reactive person. Level 2, I freeze up. I'm reading my book. The fly starts to circle around my head. I hope that it will leave me alone. It lands on my arm and I say to myself, don't react. And I'm frozen. I can't do anything else but I'm looking at that fly. And then the fly just gets a basic reaction out of our attempt not to react. Level 3 is the boomerang. You're reading your book and the fly lands on your arm and you look at it and then you just return to what you were doing, and the fly temporarily disrupts your attention, but you don't shake the fly. You just allow the fly to come and go. And the fly did get a reaction out of you, but you returned quite quickly back to what you were doing, reading your book. Then there's level 4, the anchor. So the fly lands on your arm, it flies to your face, you notice the fly momentarily, but it doesn't disturb you or cause you to lose your focus on what you're reading. So when we practice mindfulness, we're focusing on our breath, for example, the mind moves to another thought or a sound or a sensation, and we get distracted by these things, but then we gently come back to the present moment. And this builds our muscle of being less reactive. So these are all certain triggers as well that move our attention in different ways, but then we're always coming back to being more response able. So how do you move into a place of responding instead of reacting? And with regards to our triggers, it's normally another person that is causing us our triggers, isn't it? Or afflictive emotions, or pushing our buttons. And one of the teachers of mindfulness said that the problem is because we still have buttons to push. We have created those buttons. So it's really, really helpful to identify those triggers. And with HD resolution, we can see it coming from far away. Oh, here comes irritation. There it is. There's the leaf blower. I'm going to lose it. And instead of turning it into a big thing, we can stop it in its tracks and say, okay, fine, I caught you. I'm shining the light of awareness on you. stop in your tracks. So when we explore how to relax, create space, I love the quote by Dr. Viktor Frankl, who says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies my freedom to choose my response. And in that is my growth and my happiness. What a phenomenal quote by a phenomenal psychologist. So let's create some space. Let's take a moment to just create space. And from that space, we can then be response able.